Hello, Kate here from Keight Krafts, sharing with you another project for Hello Tree Hobbies. Let's get started. So to kick things off, we are going to go in with some dried marigold, and we are going to be using the Honeycomb Stencil by Fawn. Now, I am using some of this Distress Oxide because I like the way that it dries back, and we are going to be doing a little bit of a trick with it. So I'm just going back and forth with this on the stencil, just moving it down, and I'm not being too particular about how straight my line is because I'm going to be coming in with a second Distress Oxide. Now, I thought this was going to be a little bit lighter, I thought, when I was putting this down, until I came in with the next color, and you'll see here in a minute what I mean. So all I'm doing here is making sure that I have a big enough or wide enough line going down with the honeycombs, and then I'm just going to take the stencil and match everything up again, and we are going to go in with this wild honey. Now you can see the difference between the wild honey and the dried marigold, and I think the two of them look really nice. It almost gives it a little bit of a depth, if you will, depending on how heavy-handed you are. So you've got this brighter color around the edges, and then you've got a bit of the dried marigold in the middle there. So I think the wild honey and the dried marigold look really good together for this one. So again, I'm just lining everything up as best as I possibly can. I mean, this gets a little bit tricky here, but we get there in the end. So I'll use my magnets to hold it down and then very carefully line that back up again, and then we'll go over the rest of the panel here with this. Now, you could go over it all over again to make sure that the Distress Oxide is very saturated on the paper, because this takes a little bit to dry, and with this next step, I probably should have went over again, trying very hard not to lift any of the Distress Oxide up off the paper because I do end up with a few dry spots. Now here we are going in with some clear embossing powder, and pretty soon you will see those clear spots, but not to worry, again, I'm not mad. I really like how this panel turned out. This would be great to just add a sentiment and maybe a few bees to it, and you have a card. But we are going to take this one step further. So while we're heating embossing with the heat gun here, I should tell you that all of the things that I will be using in today's card will be linked in the description box below, and I encourage you to head over to the Hollow Tree Hobbies website and have a looky-loo. And while you're at it, you could also check out the social media on Facebook and Instagram, as well as their blog, because there's lots of inspiration to see by all the other design team members as well, not just me. We have quite the talent on our team, so yeah, give it a check out. So now that is all heat embossed, we are going to go ahead and decorate. Now, this isn't my first rodeo. I will be honest and I will admit this. I had actually created this card earlier and really did not like how it turned out, but I was able to peel up some of the images that I had already used in the initial project, and I was able to reuse them. So I was quite pleased with that. So waste not, want not, right? So that's why some of these pieces look a little wonky, because I had already used them. So you'll have to excuse me here. I'm just adding a little bit of glue to things off camera here. I didn't realize I was off camera, so you'll have to forgive me. And I'm just gluing down some of those extra little honey pots to create quite the feast. So once I have those all glued together, we are going to go ahead and glue these extra little flowers that I have to the top of the honey hive. The honey hive? It's not quite the love shack, but it's the honey hive. So once we have those glued down, I'll be able to go ahead and add our pots of honey. And I'll just cover that little bit up. As you can see, I kind of lifted it up from the other card, and I like that I was able to do that. I had used liquid glue instead of double-sided tape, and sometimes liquid glue on acetate pulls up a little bit nicer. So once we figured out where that's going to go, I'm going to add a little glue to the back as well as to the front. That way I've got double adhesion on both sides and I can fit that in nicely. And because I have a second one, we will do the same thing to that. Now, I want to make sure that anything that is touching I can glue down. That way it is nice and secure. So again, I'll add a little bit to the front and a little bit to the back. Again, I apologize if that's off camera. And then we'll line that up and then give that a nice squeeze. So once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to pick up the little banner there and I'm going to put that down across the center there. So that looks like they're having a little party there and they've got lots of honey. And we're going to add a whole bunch of glue to the back side of this. Now you could use foam tape, but because we are creating a shaker today, I didn't want to add a lot of bulk in case this is something that gets mailed instead of hand delivered. So once I'm satisfied with the placement, I will give that a good mash down to make sure that it sits nice and tight. So once that's done, we can move on to the next. So now I have all these extra little banners. I ended up cutting and coloring more off camera, and I thought, you know what? This is going to be one buzzing party, so why not add a bunch of banners? And this is probably as far as I got with the original one, and I ended up getting all the pieces together to glue into a shaker card, but I don't know, sometimes when you make your first card, it just doesn't feel right, but you have so much passion towards the idea that you're just determined to see it to the end. So you scrap the first one and you recreate it, and you know what? Sometimes that happens, and that's okay. That's the fun thing about paper crafting, especially when you can still lift a few of the pieces from your original project and reuse them. So, yeah. So this one I was more satisfied with. I was quite happy with how this came together, because sometimes you just don't see it. So here all I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the Stardust Pen by Sakura, and I'm going to add a little twinkle to all these little tiny bits. Now you could use a Wink of Stella or some glue and some loose glitter, but I like that this is kind of a no-nonsense mess. No-nonsense mess. Say that 5 times fast. And I'm just going to go around everywhere where I would have gone around with a white gel pen. And I do like using this as an alternative to a white gel pen. I do struggle with a white gel pen, as some of you may or may not know, and I like to opt for a little bit of glitter sometimes. So once I've gone ahead and highlighted everything that I need to highlight, and try not to forget everything or anything, like that little banner down there on the left-hand corner. I get there in a minute. I thought I would add a little bit here to these stars just to give a little more twinkle. And I really like how the Let's Celebrate backdrop die looks. I think this is a lot of fun. You could really get away with a lot of 80s colors and it would fit right in. So for our shaker bits, I am going in with all of these little bees that I colored, and I'm making sure that I have them all face down because you don't want to just toss them in there all willy-nilly. Otherwise, you are going to have them backwards, and you'll have to excuse me, I had a little bit of a fuzz going on here that I had to pick out. So once I've gone ahead and picked out all the fuzz, we will continue to add all of our bees. Now you want to make sure that they're all face down. Otherwise, you don't get to see them. And I gone ahead off camera and added a bunch of foam tape. Now this isn't very thick foam tape either because you don't need a lot of room with the bees. And I'm going to go ahead and remove all that release tape. And then we are going to go and double stick everything. So I'm just going to add little dots around the edges here just in case I need to lift up. And two, we are going to be gluing on top of adhesive, or I'm sorry, embossing powder with this adhesive because the embossing powder, once it's set, it's like almost like a plastic coating. So like acetate, you want to make sure sometimes that you double stick. And here you go in slow motion. Look at how fun those bees are. So next we are going to take our card panel and we are going to add a whole bunch of glue here. That way we could adhere this to our card base. And I'm going to write a little hollow tree right there with a couple of hearts. You don't have to, it's optional. But since this is the Hollow Tree Hobbies YouTube channel, I am going to add a little bit of glue here with the banner because I've cut the banner off camera. And next we are going to take that little queen bee. Now I already have a queen bee inside of the card, and I know that generally 2 queen bees don't exist in one hive, but you know what? It happened. We are going to have 2 queen bees. So to the queen bee, that's what this one is. So once I'm done that, you can see how my card came together. I really had fun the second time around figuring this one out, and here you have my finished card. Please give this video a like. I also welcome you to subscribe, and as always, thanks for hanging out with me today. Take care.